But it's also a further red flag when we now know that David's father, Dawood Burke, is actually a litigation support manager at Troutman Pepperlock. And Troutman Pepperlock is known to represent the co-executors of Jeffrey Epstein's estate. I think we all know who Jeffrey Epstein is and what he has been accused and convicted of. Now, Troutman Pepperlock's impact on survivors and victims of Jeffrey Epstein varies. Some victims and their lawyers say that the firm helped, but there's a lot of them that actually said that the firm used obstructionist tactics and stonewall discovery in civil cases to pressure survivors into joining the private compensation fund rather than pursuing public trials against Jeffrey Epstein.
Right now, David is under intense scrutiny after shocking reports revealed that his father was once one of Jeffrey Epstein's lawyers. Because of that connection, authorities believe David may have been exposed to extremely disturbing situations at a very young age. Investigators say this background could help explain some of the troubling behavior and details that have surfaced in his case so far. But the situation does not stop there. A recent police investigation suggests that the situation involving Celeste is far more serious than anyone initially realized. According to authorities, David is alleged to have been involved in trafficking young girls, including Celeste. Officials now claim that additional victims have come forward, and the scope of what they are uncovering is deeply alarming. New information seems to appear almost daily, and each update makes the case feel darker than before. What's especially disturbing is that police reportedly discovered David's connection to Epstein some time ago, but chose not to include it in official court documents. Sources claim this was done to keep the information from becoming public. However, the internet quickly caught on. Online users uncovered records showing David's father was part of Epstein's legal team. And once that information spread, public interest exploded. As the investigation continues, many are bracing for even more unsettling revelations.
Also, a further red flag when we now know that David's father, Dawood Burke, is actually a litigation support manager at Troutman Pepperlock. And Troutman Pepperlock is known to represent the co-executors of Jeffrey Epstein's estate. I think we all know who Jeffrey Epstein is and what he has been accused and convicted of. Now, Troutman Pepperlock's impact on survivors and victims of Jeffrey Epstein varies. Some victims and their lawyers say that the firm helped, but there's a lot of them that actually said that the firm used obstructionist tactics and stonewall discovery in civil cases to pressure survivors into joining the private compensation fund rather than pursuing public trials against Jeffrey Epstein.
New details make this situation even more disturbing. Reports claim that David's father didn't just work with Epstein, but was also involved in pressuring victims to avoid court and accept hush money instead. Because of that, many people feel the saying, "The apple doesn't fall far from the tree," applies here. What raises even more concern is information shared by an anonymous investigator. They claim there is evidence suggesting David may have been around Epstein when he was a child. It's unclear what that exposure looked like. It could have been sitting in legal meetings with his father, or it could have meant being present at Epstein's gatherings. Either possibility alone raises serious red flags. Authorities now believe Celeste was not the only victim. According to sources, police uncovered evidence leading them to suspect multiple young girls were involved. Investigators are reportedly treating David as a trafficker, believing he held girls against their will and allegedly sold them. Some claims even suggest victims who didn't survive were disposed of, similar to what allegedly happened to Celeste. The case expands further with Mogul Records and its owner, Robert Morgan Roth. Police are examining whether Robert actively participated or covered things up to protect his biggest earner. After being called before a grand jury, Robert allegedly admitted he never contacted police because he felt it wasn't his responsibility and didn't want to disrupt a tour. That explanation has only deepened suspicion, especially since investigators say one victim previously emailed him with a warning.
Friend of Celeste Rivas Hernandez sent an email to Josh Marshall, who is David's manager and roommate, back in 2024, February 2024. And in the email was the missing persons report of Celeste and all of her information. And it said, "We know Celeste is living with you guys. She needs to return home. One day later, Celeste returned home. And then a month after that, she went back to living with David and his roommate, Josh Marshall. So Josh Marshall was well aware of Celeste Rivas Hernandez's age and that she was a missing child.
New information shows that people close to David and his inner circle were aware of Celeste Hernandez's situation much earlier than previously believed. In February 2024, a family friend of Celeste sent an email to Josh Marshall, who was both David's manager and his roommate at the time. That email reportedly included Celeste's missing person report along with her personal details. The message clearly stated that Celeste was believed to be living with them, and that she needed to return home immediately. Just one day after that email was sent, Celeste did go back home, which suggests the message was received and understood. However, about a month later, she allegedly returned to live with David and Josh again. Because of this timeline, authorities believe Josh Marshall was fully aware of Celeste's age and knew she had previously been reported missing. This detail has become a major focus of the investigation. It raises serious questions about why no one contacted law enforcement or took steps to protect her. Investigators are now closely examining Josh's role to determine what he knew, when he knew it, and why Celeste was allowed to return to that living situation. As more evidence comes out, this part of the case continues to trouble many people watching closely.
Manager Josh Marshall commented on my last video and asked me to pin the comment. TikTok doesn't allow you to pin comments anymore, so I will leave screenshots of it in this particular video. But what he said was everything that I said in the video was completely false. He said he never received an email and he had zero knowledge of anything that was going on. He doesn't live in California. He lives in a completely different state than David with his wife and his 3 children. Josh Marshall also said that he doesn't have much interaction with his clients or David because he works remotely 95% of the time.
At first, many people believed the manager being questioned was Josh Marshall. However, Josh quickly moved to separate himself from the situation and shifted attention toward Robert instead. He publicly stated that he had no knowledge of what was going on and made it clear that he did not live in California at the time. Josh explained that he worked remotely almost all the time and claimed his role did not require close, day-to-day involvement with David. According to him, his job responsibilities were limited, and he rarely interacted directly with clients in person. He emphasized that other team members handled David's daily management and decisions, not him. By saying this, Josh appeared to draw a clear line between himself and the events being investigated. He suggested that people were confusing his title with actual involvement, and that his name was being attached to something he had nothing to do with. His statement sounded like an attempt to protect himself from growing scrutiny as the case gained attention. Still, some observers questioned the timing of his response, and whether distancing himself so quickly raised more questions than answers. As the investigation continues, authorities are expected to look closely at everyone connected to David to determine who knew what and when.
Weeks we've been wondering just what it was that a private investigator named Steve Fisher found inside David's home when he was given access last October. The PI reported seeing, quote, items you would expect to find on a farm rather than in a home in the Hollywood Hills. And today, we are learning about one of those items. Fisher has confirmed it was something called a burn cage. Take a look at your screen. That's what a burn cage looks like. It's used usually on farms to incinerate waste and debris, but lots of private homes have them as well. This particular model can apparently get up to a whopping 1,600 degrees Fahrenheit, which is about 200 degrees hotter than the temperature required to burn human bones. And this is the photographs he took of that burn device, the burn cage inside David's home. He noted that these types of incinerators are illegal in LA County.
Things take an even darker turn when you look at where everyone was actually based. The manager who lives in California is not Josh, it's Robert. Reports now suggest that Robert and David may have been living in the same house around the time the alleged murder happened. That detail alone has made investigators take a much closer look at both of them. According to sources close to the case, police are now piecing together evidence that points to something far more organized than originally believed. Investigators think the alleged trafficking operation may have been carefully planned in advance, not random or impulsive. One detail that raised major alarms was the freezer found inside David's home. Authorities are now saying there may be enough evidence to suggest it was used to store bodies before they were removed. As disturbing as that sounds, it doesn't end there. Police also reportedly discovered a burned metal cage on the property. Sources claim it was capable of reaching temperatures high enough to destroy human remains. Investigators are trying to determine whether this was used for illegal disposal purposes. Officials stress that these claims are still under investigation, but the growing number of findings has made the case increasingly unsettling. With each new detail, the situation appears more serious and far more calculated than anyone first imagined.
In terms of, so this guy, with regard to the grand jury situation right now, is this person being so uncooperative? Is there an uncooperative witness that is part of the situation that is on the verge of getting arrested herself? Is that the case?
That's exactly right. So it's one of the other people that they hope to speak with as part of this grand jury is a female witness. We're unclear who she is or how she may be connected to the case, but she has been uncooperative, so much so that the district attorney is considering getting something called a body attachment, which is similar to an arrest warrant, but essentially what it would be is that law enforcement would go and find this witness and literally take her back, and in handcuffs if necessary, to the district or to the grand jury room rather, where she would be then made to testify. So again, it's unclear who she is and how she's connected to the case, but they really want to talk to her. So I would think that would indicate that she's someone who may play an important role.
This case keeps getting darker. David doesn't even own the house where all this allegedly happened. Investigators say he installed the burn cage without the landlord's knowledge or permission. On top of that, he reportedly ordered and paid for it using a fake name. David's team tried to claim it was meant for a music video prop, but investigators weren't buying it. One said, "Why would a 55-pound burn cage be delivered to a private home instead of a professional set? Why order it before going on a long world tour? And why was it never used in any production?" The details are starting to stack up. After David's connection to Epstein leaked, things suddenly went quiet. A new court order now prevents the medical examiner from releasing any information about the case, including cause of death and reports. The office says details will only come out once the court order is lifted, even as new victims reportedly come forward. Suspicion grows that someone powerful may be involved. For example, a female witness who was officially summoned to testify before the grand jury refused to appear. Deputy DA Beth Silverman reportedly told the attorney she might request the judge to issue a body attachment to compel testimony. Even with that, the witness still didn't show, and authorities are now considering further legal action. The whole situation is increasingly mysterious and troubling.